Hi everyone, here we are again for season 2 of the Tipsy Realtor. It's myself and Anna Terranova with our special guest Brian from Permit Masters, because today we are having Negronis and we're talking about what you need for permits when selling your home. So, as always,
big topic,
big drink. Exactly. We are in November and we are honoring men for this November in having only manly drinks and only manly cocktails. So today we are making the cocktail, the Negroni. So, of course, every guy out there is like, of course you are. The Negroni is an amazing cocktail.
It's actually my husband's favorite cocktail.
Is it?
Yeah, definitely. He is actually quite snobby about it.
Oh.
He's very picky on how his Negroni tastes.
Well, one thing about Negronis is they're nice because everything is equal parts. Now, I kind of laughed because when I looked at the recipe, throwing in Campari, and now I'm throwing in gin, it was saying 3 parts of each, and I was laughing. I'm like, wow, 3 ounces of alcohol, that seems like a lot.
And we're using a really nice gin today from Eau Claire Distillery, one of the locals distilleries here in Alberta.
And then our last part is sweet vermouth. Now, I like to mix mine up a little, and we've got the big huge ice balls that we gave away last week. And then it's super simple, very easy to make. Garnish with an orange.
My real orange.
Cheers.
Let's try it. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
They are nice and smooth.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they are funny that way in the fact that they are kind of a nice tart flavor. It's got that really tartness that you get with Campari.
Very good.
It's very good.
Nice and strong.
Easy to make.
Yeah, and
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so shot of each. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's put that.
Get the flavor.
It doesn't fit in my glass. Like, this is so enormous. So you pick a smaller orange at the store for garnishing. But yes, it is delicious. You know what? It's a classic. It goes well at any night when you have guests over.
Absolutely.
Or after a tough day at work when you had
Or
to
at
look.
lunch.
Wednesday lunch. You guys know it's a 5 o'clock somewhere in that little island by Brazil.
It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean, but either way, it's 5 o'clock over there.
Atlantic.
Brazil. There
Yes.
you go.
So cheers, and also we are celebrating the men. We are celebrating. The veterans who did served our country and stood there for freedom. So cheers to you, and thank you for your service and all the work you've done. So now, Brian, back to you, the hard topic of permits. It's almost, a lot of people not actually quite aware of, we bought a house, we lived there for 10 years, and permits were not so must. Now it's a part of a purchase contract. You have to have your permits to close the deal.
Yeah.
Tell me about, let's say, what is current important information people need to know?
What they should know, first thing first, is if you're selling your house and you've done home improvement, any sort of home improvement, adding a wall, removing walls, electrical, plumbing, you technically need a permit for it. And very often people will get the brother-in-law to help for the home improvement, or they'll get a contractor that'll do a quick job. They won't necessarily
Someone they
advise.
found on Kijiji.
They found on
Don't do that.
Kijiji.
Don't find anybody on Kijiji for your home improvement basement development.
But it's okay. I think what's important is for the homeowner to be aware of the fact that they need a permit. So they should educate themselves, and wherever you are in Calgary, Edmonton, across the province, across Canada, you go into the local website, you'll know what is required for the permit. And the person you hire, you just ask them to obtain the permits, and if they do or not. And if they don't, you can call a company like ours to actually assist you with this. And then you ask to see them to make sure that they actually delivered on their work. And don't listen to the contractor that will tell you, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need a permit because I'm doing the work right. Doing the work right is important, but that doesn't guarantee that you don't need a permit.
Right.
You always need a permit for home improvements.
So if you guys installing a new bathroom in your basement, or you're doing even a simple electrical job, right?
Yeah.
Some people like to pre-wire the basements, not quite finish them, and kind of sell it because it does increase the value when your electrical is done. You still have to get the permits done for that.
Absolutely. And now the challenge is this. Now, when you're trying to sell a house, as part of your selling listing with your agent, you'll be asked the question, did you do home improvement and did you get the permits? And you'll have to disclose that. And that's been in place for almost 10 years now.
And
Yes.
you're actually supposed to disclose it if you know you don't have permits. That's why we have it as a standard question on our listing contracts. And then once you say no, we're supposed to tell the buyers coming in, especially on the purchase contracts, and disclose it, because they can not buy the house on the home inspection because of a lack of disclosure of lack of permits.
Right. And lack of permits create a lot of problems.
Absolutely.
Like what kind of problems, people should be aware of? Why is it important?
Well, it's important because if the construction is not done right, and let's go back, you can get a permit after the fact. So we do that all the time. So the homeowner,
you can get the permit after the fact.
you have the conversation with your real estate agent, you say, I did home improvement, I didn't get permit, oops. You can still get the permits after the fact. Now, if the work was done 5 or 10 years ago, you still have to meet today's standards. So when you apply for the permit today, so we come in and start the process to get your permit, you're going to have to meet the standards that are in place, not at the time of construction, but the time that you're applying for.
That's probably the tricky part.
That's
right?
the tricky part, because things evolve. Changes in bylaws and building codes happen almost on a monthly basis.
Yes.
So things change, and if you didn't get the permit, you don't have the grandfathered in. So people will tell you, well, my contractor did a good job and it was 20 years ago, so now I'm grandfathered. No. If you didn't get the permit at the time, you don't get protected from all these changes in regulation. And I always give the example, the simple one. If you build a house and it's supposed to be 10 meters and you build it at 10 meters and you didn't get a permit and the regulation changed and now it's 8 meters, you're probably going to have to remove some of the height of your house. But if you get the permit, nobody's going to knock on your door and say, hey, we changed the regulation, now you got to reduce your house.
Because at some point it was approved.
Because you were approved, so you were legal at the time and you're protected.
That's a good.
But very often, these small home improvements, they're not protected because you didn't do the work.
So what happens with people who've done who bought the house, before the regulation? I know in the early 2000s and late 1990s, even before that, obviously, people developed their own basements, not doing the permits. Most of them had probably special contractors that have done electrical or plumbing, but drywall probably went on their own. So can you get permit for that?
Absolutely. So and let's not miss the point that in 2013 or 2012, when they added the question in the listing with the agent, did you do home improvement, did you get permits? It's not because before you didn't have to get permits. It's really to solve a problem. You always had to have a permit. It's just now suddenly
it's a part of the contract.
It's part of the contract. Now suddenly real estate agent or suddenly the trigger for that conversation to happen. But for those that bought the house in, let's say, 1995 and they're trying to sell now, and at the time, it was not advised by their realtor to ask the question. They never thought asking for their due diligence. Now they're on the hook for whatever was done. And we've seen improvement done 30 years ago.
Okay.
And you have a grandma who passed away and they're trying to sell the house, and there was all these home improvements done in the 80s, and they still have to get them approved under today's standards.
I get a question quite often about this when I do talk to my clients about permits. They're like, do we have to cut our walls? They're all afraid about, now they have a great basement and they need to put extra money into the permits and cut the walls and then do repairs.
Yes.
How does it happen? How do you get the permit?
So first of all, there's 3 permits that could come into play, and they're all very different from one another. You have the electrical permit, you have the plumbing permit, and you have the building permit.
Okay.
The building permit is the one that we all know the most. It's building a wall, removing a wall, adding windows, any sort of project that you have a hammer for.
So if you add a window into a basement, you need a permit for
You
that?
need a permit for that.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
Yes.
No.
Actually, City of Calgary has to approve. I did of my own reno where I had to go through the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to draw a picture and stuff, and
So
Pictures,
apply.
here's a square.
you gotta
on a
show.
square.
Yeah, exactly.
How big it's gonna be, which way it's facing, where is a neighboring property is,
Exactly.
and where
Really?
if there is any utilities close to window wall, gas line and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And the goal there for a window, as a specific, the goal is to make sure that the window, if it's facing a neighbor, the glazing, as we call it, the amount of window that's facing a neighbor is not too large, because it has an impact on the fire connection with the neighbors. So there's a maximum amount of windows you can have on your house, depending on where the window is located.
Interesting.
And there's also distance between if the window is used for egress, you want to make sure that it's not covered with a deck. So somebody, if there's a fire, they can actually come out.
Privacy, would they make sure that the window doesn't like look on someone else's bedroom window or bathroom window?
Yeah, it could be. So
I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, do you know the listing we had in on 23rd Ave? There is like a living room window facing exactly the window of, but it's like super old property. Yeah. So I don't know if that was a big deal back in the day.
Privacy is a criteria, not for the building code. The building code is there to make sure that the nuts and bolts, like how it's built, is okay. And we're talking about fire protection. The overlooking, the privacy, we see it more with decks or balconies on the second floor. Now we're talking about zoning regulations. Right. So there's another layer of all of these regulations, and there's a lot of those layers that would then look into, are you impeding on your neighbor's privacy and making sure that you don't.
Yes, by the way, there is, limit on how high the fence can be and how high your balcony deck can be built. And so you also need to look into permits for that.
And so it's funny, actually, I'll bring that up because we're going to have to close up after this. But can you explain, because a lot of people always ask us, how high, at what point do I need a permit for my deck? And this is always the issue, right? Like, what are the standards that I need a permit and when don't I need a permit?
Okay, depending on the municipality you're in, it has different regulations and different triggers. But generally the rule of thumb is if your deck is below 2 feet off the ground, it's not a deck, it's a patio, and you don't need a permit for that. If it's above 2 feet off the ground, then all the regulations for the building code kick in, like having a railing to make sure you don't fall off the deck and all of this, and that triggers the need for a building permit.
And you were saying that now to get permits is quite a long wait.
You know, now, one of the challenges that we have right now is with COVID, the approvals are a little delayed. So I say if you're a seller and you're putting your house on the market and you know you have permits that you will need, start that process then. Because it can take 4, 5, 6 weeks, even for the simple projects. And some that are more challenging, that need a variance because maybe your deck is too close to your property line or something like that, it can take 3 months. Right now, that's the challenge we have, is things will improve and we'll go back to the approvals being a little bit quicker. But there's nothing like being able to resolve all the permits before there's a transaction and before there's a possession date.
And just to put last week's show and this week's show together, if you don't have your permits, you're not getting your real property report with compliance.
Actually, that's one of the interesting pieces. So the real property report will identify what's outside that you've done. So you can't lie if you built a new deck or a garage, because it's going to be on your real property report. And you're right, you won't get that little stamp on it if you didn't get the permit. Inside, it's more about being honest and disclosing whatever improvements been done, and also being aware that you may have bought the house with improvements before you that were not permitted.
That's right.
And the buyer might actually want to see this as well. And the city, most municipalities, you can call them, give them your address and say, what are the permits we've obtained on this house over the past 20, 30 years? And they'll be able to give you a list, and you'll be able to match and say, the previous owner told me he finished his basement in 1994 and it looks like there's a permit on file. Or there's nothing on file, so I should probably disclose that to the buyer.
And just keep in mind, it is important for your insurance company, if anything happens ever and you have no permits and the house catches on fire because electrical was bad, there will be maybe different coverage or no coverage for that particular.
And also too is your real estate agent has access to something called real estate maps, which give you give us a full assessment on your home, and it can show us what permits are registered and when on the house. It's our cheat sheet. You should always do your due diligence. You should always call 311, and you should always verify the address. Realtors can give you a guideline. We can certainly point you in the right direction, but due diligence is about you doing the diligence to ensure that your investment is sound. Realtors can help guide you, but they can't be responsible for it. And that's why there is a legal term called caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. But as fun of a conversation as this is, we're going to have to wrap it up. It is Wednesday lunch. We only have so long to do this.
Good thing nobody tried to eat the orange yet. But so for this month, our draw is this amazing bullet shaker. It's really cool, super manly. We'll go to your man cave, which is a topic for the next week. and it's fantastic. You know, you can shake some amazing drinks. Obviously not Negronis.
No,
Yeah.
not Negroni.
Yeah, but how cool. So what you have to do is just like, love, share some of our videos on all social media platforms that you can see it, and your name will be entered to win this amazing prize the first week of December.
Which is offered by and on behalf of Remax Realty Professionals. And, of course, when you join us next week, we are doing Twisted Old Fashions, and we're talking about what to look for or what men want when looking at buying a home. So this is going to be a fun kind of like, what are we doing it? We're doing it like it's The View. We have 3 special guests.
We have a platform of men.
And they are going to tell us what men want when looking at a house, what is important to them, what they're looking for. What
It'll be very interesting.
It will be very interesting.
Yeah.
So, we want to thank you so much for joining us. And of course, if you are ever looking at buying or selling a house or need a permit, please call myself and Anna Terranova for real estate and Brian from Permit Masters for your permits. We'll talk to you guys later. I hope you guys have a very fantastic week.
Thank you.